Welcome to the second video in our video series for the RT Prac exam, or paper 1 for grade 12s from November 2023. And we're looking at the second question, which is the database and SQL question. So just a reminder that there are links in the video description to the data files, which I recommend that you download and then you can try it out yourself. There are links to individual parts to this paper to jump to a particular question, as well as links to the other videos. So let's go straight into question 2. So we are dealing with a database for a university for the administration communication to the smooth running of the process that has information about lecturers and the courses they teach. So there's a table for lecturers and table for courses, and they give us this as the diagram. So we can see there what the different fields are. So that's the lecturer table and that's the courses table. And then over here, they have a description of the two tables, and we're going to be referring to TBL lectures whenever we're referring to the lectures table, and TBL courses when we refer to the courses table. If you don't know, right at the bottom on the appendices, you will find the details of all the fields, what their data type is, and the information about them. So this information is at the bottom, so you can go read about that to get the information about the different tables and the relationship. So there's a link between the lecturer ID from the lecturers to the lecturer ID in courses. So just take note of that. So we're dealing with Boolean. We've got a couple of numbers and text. So let's take note of these when we go to the actual question. So let's start off with some SQL statements. So what I've got over here, I've got an actual diagram of the table, so we can refer to this if we need to. So let's start off. We want to write an SQL statement that displays all the courses in the courses table that can accommodate 100 or more students. So you'll see that there's a max students field, and we want those that can do 100 or more, so including 100. There's an example of it. So let's come over here. So we are on the SQL tab. Make sure that you're there. Double click on this button, and we simply have to write our SQL in this text over here. So we're going to start with a select statement. We're going to select everything star from the TBL courses table where, and our criteria is where the max students is 100 or more. So where max students. Make sure that you are spelling the field names exactly like they are in the database. So that must be greater than equal to 100. And I think that's the only criteria. So let's run it. And let's click on, and that seems to be like the correct answer that we've got over there as well. There we go. Looks spot on. 2.1.2. We want to display the lecturer name and surname and the first letter of the gender of all the lecturers, and display the gender using a column heading gender with the M and F. It must look like that. So we've got the lecturer table there. We've got a gender field, but we don't want to display the gender field. We want to display just the first letter of the gender field. So we're going to do some text manipulation. We're going to copy just the first letter. So we're going to come here to the second button. Let's write the code here. So the first thing is we're going to select the lecturer name and lecturer surname. Those were the two fields that we wanted. Then we want this field, which is basically a calculator field, where we copy in basically from the left. We copy in the first letter of the actual gender field. So we've already got a gender field, but we want to copy, but there's no copy function in SQL, but there is a left function. We copy from the to the left. We copy from the left. So we're going to use the left function. We're going to take gender and we're going to copy how many characters? Just one. So that's going to copy from one character. And we want that to be displayed as a label that says gender with the M and F in brackets. So now the problem with that is that there are spaces. So when I come here and I do this gender open brackets M/F like that, it's not going to like that. So I need to put that in square brackets so that I can take that as the field name as a whole, because there's a space there and there's other stuff there. So we need to put that in a square bracket. And we're getting that from which table? From the lecturers table. And I don't see anything about a criteria. So I think that's all that they want. I'm going to put this on a new line so that you can see all the text. Add that text. There we go. So you can see it line by line. That should be correct. Let's run it. I'm going to click on that option, and there we can see all the lecturers and the first letter of their gender, and that's accepted the name correctly. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Display the course ID and the course name of all the courses that have a multilingual lecturer. The results must be sorted in alphabetical order according to course name. So we want the course ID and the course name for all the multilingual lecturers. So that's interesting. If I come here, let's just see, why does it seem so easy, but it's probably not. So we want the course ID and the course name, but we want to know if the lecturer is multilingual, which is, there we go. So there's nothing in the courses table about multilingual, but but there is in the lecturer table. So this is a question where we are using two tables. So the rule is whenever we're using two tables, one of our criteria has to be the link, which is the lecturer ID here matches the lecturer ID there. So whenever you're using two tables, remember that extra clause. Even if there's no criteria, you will have a where clause which specifies what the link is between the two tables. So let's double click over here. So we want to select the course ID and the course name. And put a plus here, and we can write the rest of the text like this. You can do it like this if you want to break it line by line. Just make sure that you've got a space at the end of the line before, because it's going to add this to that end. So we're going to get this from two tables, from TBL courses as well as TBL lecturers. Remember to leave that space at the end. Then what's my conditions? Well, the moment you've got two tables, you must have the link, which is TBL courses dot lecturer ID is the same as the lecturer ID of the other one. So we've got to specify the table so it knows which one we're referring to. So the lecturer ID of the one is the same as TBL lecturers dot lecturer ID. Put a space there, and there's another clause. We want only the multilingual ones, which means the multilingual field must be true. So we're going to put here multilingual equals true. But I think I remember something about the order, in alphabetical order according to the course name. So that's an extra criteria. So we want to order here. So I'm going to put over here a plus order by course name. And we don't need to put ASC in because it's going to automatically do it in ascending order. If we want it in descending order, then we would put a DESC. Remember, that must be in capitals if you do use it. So I think that's all. Let's test it quickly. So multilingual. So those are the multilingual. Let's see what they gave us as our options. So there we go. I think it's the same as what they've got there. So I think we spot on there. Let's do 2.1.4. A lecturer's salary is determined by the number of courses facilitated by that lecturer. The amount of 10,000 Rand is paid for each course facilitated by the lecturer. For example, if lecturer facilitates 3 courses, they'll get 30,000 Rand. That makes sense. Display the ID of the lecturer and their salary based on the number of courses that they are selling. So let's look over here. So we're going to basically go through the courses and we want to look for each of these lecturer IDs. So we want to group all these lecturer IDs together to find out how many courses they take. So that's what I'm going to do first. Let's do that first. That might be an easier way to do it. Let's double click over here. So we want to select the lecturer ID and I'm going to then count how many times that lecturer ID appears in the TBL courses table. So we're going to select the lecturer ID and count how many times that lecturer ID appears from courses. But the moment you have a calculated field with another field, then you are grouping by that field, which means we must then over here say group by lecturer ID. If you've forgotten your order of what must come first, remember it is smelly feet will give horrible odors. So remember that order. So it's always select from where, group by, have in, order by. So let's just see what this looks like. That lecturer takes 2 courses. That lecturer takes 1 course. That one takes 2. So we're going to take that number and we're going to multiply that answer by 10,000. So we're going to take this count value and we're going to then multiply it by 10,000. And we want to say it as, because remember they want us to display it as the word salary. So we can say that as salary. So let's try that. So we're simply just taking that count variable and multiplying it by 10,000. So it's looking very close. The only thing that's different is that the salary is in currency. It's formatted to a currency. We're going to do that now. We're going to format this whole thing here as a currency. So we're going to format it. This is the calculation. Format the whole thing. And then the second parameter is the currency. So format this calculation as currency and then display it as salary. Let's try it. There we go. And I think our results are almost exactly the same. There we go. It's exactly the same. So there we go. I think that one is done. And the last SQL question, 2.1.5, we haven't done an insert, delete, or update. So this is probably going to be one of them. Write code to change the online option to false if the course contains the word programming. So if the word programming is somewhere inside of the course name, then we want to change that to false. There you can see example of all the courses, and the programming ones must be changed to false. So this is what it looks like before, and this is what it looks like after. So you can see that the programming one there has changed to false. So this is a change the current record. So we're going to update. Double click there. So we are going to update, and we're updating the courses table, if I'm correct. Yes, the courses table, because that's got the online option. TBL courses. We are going to set online option. I think it's called online option, one word. That must be now equal to false. But we only want to do that where the word programming is somewhere in the word course name. Now, this is what some people are going to do. They're going to say where course name equals programming. So first of all, we're not going to use quotes there. We're going to use double quotes there. That'll make it a bit easier for us so that it doesn't interfere with our quotes that we use in Delphi. So we're using double quotes. But if you do that, it's not going to do anything because none of these courses are probably called just programming. We want the word programming to appear somewhere in it. So that means we want to use not equal to, but like. And then we want to have anything in front of the word programming and anything at the end. So we put star at the front or star at the back, and those are our wildcards. But remember, that's what it will do if we did this, for example, in Access. But we are doing this in Delphi, and Delphi doesn't like using those as the wildcard, so we can use the percentage sign instead. So we're using the percentage sign to represent anything. So any text before the word programming and any text after the word programming. And it could be nothing. So it could start with the word programming. It could end with the word programming, or it could have programming somewhere in the middle. Those courses must change. And then this will show us if everything did it correctly. So let's go run it. Over here, we can actually see all the courses. So there you can see there's programming. That's one. And if I scroll down, there's another one that's programming. And there's a couple at the bottom that are all say true. So let's go here and we're going to run it. So it actually displays the results over here. So if I come over here, you can see that the program ones actually haven't changed. So maybe I made a mistake over here. Oh, that's that. We've left that star there. That's not supposed to be there. We're supposed to replace the stars with the percentage sign. So there we go. So we left that star in. So let's try it now. I think that was the mistake. If we come back here, we can see programming has been changed to false. I'll scroll down a bit more. There's two more falses for those programs. So there we go. I think it works. So there we go. Now we're going to move on to the next question. Make sure that you save, and then we must move to the Delphi code tab. So we'll deal with the questions over there. In 2.2, they talk about us working in the Delphi code tab, and there's two questions. So let's go straight to question 2.2.1. The workload of all lecturers must be determined in order to issue them with a fair number of courses to facilitate. So we're using this rich edit to display the output. So we want to have a lecturer's name with their code, and then we're displaying all the courses that they are doing. So code has been provided for you. Write code that displays the lecturer ID, there's surname and name, and then display the number of courses that they facilitate and display the average duration of the course. So for all their courses, they're going to have an average duration. So we basically are looking for the ID and the lecturer name there. And then once we find Dean, we need to find all the courses that Dean takes. So DG022. So there's none over there. But if there was a DG, we would then go and display a number with the name of that course and then the average duration, which means we've got to add up all those durations to work out what the average duration is. So that's the number that's displayed there to 2 decimal places. Okay, so basically we are going through 2 tables. We're basically going to take one lecturer and go through all of their courses. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it for one lecturer. Let's just work with lecturer ID DG022. That's all I'm going to work with. And let's see if we get that result. And if that result works, we can then put that code into another loop where we go through each and every lecturer for that code. So let's just do one lecturer. So I'm going to double click over here, and I'm going to have a string here for the lecturer ID. And I'm going to set this lecturer ID to the first lecturer, which is DG022. So that's the code for the first lecturer. We are now going to go through all of the courses. So that means we're going to go TBL courses.first while not TBL courses.end of file. And then we're going to go TBL courses.next. So this is what we're going to do for just this lecturer. So what are we looking for? We are looking at the TBL courses, and to access a field, we put square brackets and then in double quotes there, we're going to write the field name. So we are looking for the lecturer ID. If the lecturer ID equals that, so we're looking for the courses lecturer ID. If that equals to our lecturer ID, then we have found a match. Then what are we going to display? We want to display a number. So we're going to have some sort of count to count how many courses they've done, because we need to work out the average anyway. So we're going to count the duration, so the total duration, and we're going to do how many courses. So I'm going to make a variable. There's already a count courses and some duration. So they've already done it for us. So at the start here, we need to say, okay, so we're going to say our courses count. must be set to 0 before we start counting anything, and the R sum of the duration must be set to 0. So we initialize that. So when we find a match, then we know that we have a course. So I'm going to increase the R count variable, and my R sum variable is going to be whatever's in the R sum variable plus the value in the duration of the courses table. So we're going to take the TBL courses square bracket duration, and I think that is an integer value, so we can just go integer to integer, so it should be fine. So take the duration, add onto some. So there we go. Then I'm going to display in the rich edit .lines.add, we're going to display a number which will represent which course we're looking at, because we've got a number. So if we found the first course, then the course count will actually be that. So we actually can display our course count, or count course, sorry. Then we're going to have a dot and a space, then a dot and a space, and then we're going to add the actual TBL courses course name, which will be that field there. So we TBL courses course name. Remember, this count is an integer, so we need to convert it from an int to a string. Just put this on a new line so you can see what it looks like. I think it's count courses. I think I must spell it right. There we go. So there we go. So we're going to, when we find a match with DG022, we're going to increase the course. We're going to add the duration onto the sum duration, and we can say, hey, this is course 1, and this is the name of the course. And then once we are finished going through all the courses for that person, that is only when we can calculate this average, which will be displayed to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to make an average variable. Oh, they've got one, our average variable. So at the end here, only after we've done all the courses for that person, can we work out their average duration, which is the sum of the duration divided by how many courses there are. And then we're going to display that in the rich edit with the words average duration of courses. And then it looks like it's 2 spaces. And then we're going to add the R average variable, but we want to display it to 2 decimal places. So we're going to float to string f, comma f fixed, comma 8, comma 2. And then you'll notice there's a blank line between each one. So I'm just going to put in this blank line anyway. So let's just put in a blank line after this. There we go. Just a blank line. You could have used hash 13. I'm just going to do a blank line. So let's look at what that does just for that person. So we are dealing with the Delphi code. So we're just looking at that person. We're going to go through all of these courses. If we find a DG022, we're going to go fetch the duration, add it onto the sum, count it, and then display the name of it. So let's go see. Do we get the same answer as them? So we get the intro, we get the fundamental physics, and we get the duration. So we've done the first one correctly. We just need to display the course ID of the person. We don't have the name, but we do have the ID. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's just change that quickly. So right at the top, before we start doing this, we're going to say .lines.add. We're just going to display the lecturer ID that we are looking for. And then we're going to put colon space with a name. So for now, I'm just going to put a colon space and name like that. We'll change it now. So let's just get one working. If we can get one working, then we should be fine. Put a plus there, so add that on. There we go. There we go. We've got the first one working. So we've got it working for one person. So all this works for one person. So now we want to do all of this for every single lecturer. So we want to start with that lecturer and then move to that one and then move to that one. So we do that one, go through all of them. Do that one, go through all of them. So we're now going to do all of this inside of the lecturer. So TBL lecturer dot first. I think it's lecturers. And we're going to say while TBL lecturers dot, not TBL lecturers. Make sure that we put a semicolon there. While we are not at the end of the TBL lecturers, begin, and we want to do all of this right until over here. That's where we're going to end of the lecturers. But before we do that, remember over here, once we've done one lecturer, we must then move TBL lecturers dot next. So I'm just literally putting all of this inside its own loop, which goes through the lecturers table, but I'm not going to look at DG022 every single time. I'm going to start by looking at the first lecturer. So I actually don't need to do that anymore. I'm going to start where the course's lecturer ID is equal to the lecturer ID from the lecture table. So we can actually say, hey, it's the TBL lecturer ID. If that is a match, if the course's ID of the lecturer and the lecturer's ID of the lecturer match, then we are currently looking at that lecturer. We found a match, go do this. But then when we display the name, we must also display this what I'm doing here is we're going to display the name there, and the name, let's put this on a new line so we can see it. So we put the lecturer ID, and then we put this, and then to get the name, we are just going to add not the ID but the lecturer name. Oh, I think it's name and surname. If you remember correctly, they said the lecturer's name with a space and then the surname. So we need the lecturer name plus the space plus the lecturer surname. So what I did is I got it first working for one lecturer, and then I put all of that code for that lecturer inside of another loop which goes to each and every lecturer. Take a note that the courses and duration initialization must be inside of the loop, because when I do the next lecturer, we're resetting those to 0 to start counting for the next lecturer. So let's try that. Delphi code, let's go display the courses. So there we go. So we can see that lecturer. Let's go see if it matches our data. So Francis has an average of 6, only 1. There we go. And I think that's working for all of them. There we go. So it seems to be working. So that's how you do a nested loop, where you are dealing with both tables. So I tend to work with just one, get one working, and then you can see how you can repeat that for each and every one with your outer loop. Then 2.2.2, the last part for this question, when the new lecturer is appointed, their details must be added. Write code to add a new record to the table. So those are the details, example of record. So we simply just add in the details. So it's 4 simple marks. So this is simply an insert using our normal code. So we're registering a new lecturer. So the first thing is we're going to go and put this value into the TBL lecturer table. So we must put it into insert mode. Remember, it's lecturers, Mr. Long. Then we're going to assign values. So we're going to first put in a value for the lecturer ID, being that. So the lecturer ID must be assigned to the value that's a string like that. So that's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to copy this. This is quick and easy. I'm going to copy this, and we're going to do that for 4 other fields. Just paste that 4 times. And then you go and change each field with each value, which I'm going to go ahead and do that now quickly. So I went ahead and did that. Make sure that you got the right names for the fields. So make sure that you got them and that you are putting the right values in. So these are all strings, including gender as well. That's a string. Multilingual is a Boolean. So we put true. We don't put that in quotes because true is a Boolean. So we're going to do that. And then the last step is TBL lecturers.post. Once we've done all the values, we can post the results. So let's run it. Come to Delphi Code. Let's click on the register new lecturer, and there you can see a new lecturer has been added with all their details. So that's correct. So we can obviously restore the database if we want to undo it and test it again. But there we go. I think we are done with question 2. Support the channel by clicking on that subscribe button. Leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Also follow our YouTube channel for theory. That's at Mr. Long Computer Terms, and on TikTok at Mr. Long Education. And remember to share us with your friends. And don't do the long way, do the Mr. Long way.